I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Goose Creek Board of Trustees to order at 6:02 p.m. Mr. Sampson, was our meeting properly posted?
Yes, sir.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Dr. Bollinger, opening exercises.
Okay, good evening, President Clem, school board members, Dr. O'Brien. We will now begin the opening exercises for June 6th Board of Trustees meeting. We will begin the opening ceremonies with a prayer led by President Clem. Everyone please rise at this time for prayer and remain standing for the pledges. Board member Ms. Barat Timms will be presenting the pledges.
Thank you. Everybody please bow your head and pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this good evening where we can gather together to guide and direct the district as Board of Trustees. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we make our decisions. Ask a special blessing on all present today, especially our students, as we celebrate their successes. We thank you for them and for what they do to represent our district. Finally, I pray that everybody has safe travel home, and you lead and guide them on the way home. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join us in reciting of the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the
Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee. Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated at this time. Tonight we are pleased to recognize several students, staff, and programs for their outstanding achievements. Roxanne Wyatt, Director of Career Technology Education, and Sarah Malloy, CTE Specialist, will be coming to the podium to begin our recognitions for Goose Creek.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. O'Brien, President Clem. Tonight, we'd like to recognize our students for our robotics program. They competed at the state championship robotics competition, so we congratulate them on this accomplishment. I would like to recognize our teachers tonight. We have our district robotics coach, Andrea Bechtel. And serving as our co-chair coach is Heather Kamasa. Our students to be recognized, Godwin Binney, who is a 9th grader at Robert E. Lee. Sierra Cartwright, a 12th grader at Robert E. Lee. Caitlin Cartwright, a 9th grader at Robert E. Lee. Danica Serino, 12th grader, Robert E. Lee. Dylan Serino, 10th grader at Robert E. Lee. Axel Galindo Martinez, 12th grader at Robert E. Lee. Allison Janice, 9th grader at Robert E. Lee. Aiden Juarez, 9th grader at Robert E. Lee. Diego Laredo, 12th grader at Robert E. Lee. Maximus Murray, 10th grader at Robert E. Lee. Corbin Richards, 12th grader at Robert E. Lee. Victor Ruiz, Jr., 10th grader at Robert E. Lee. Blake Sistos, 9th grader at Robert E. Lee. Kimberly Trong, 9th grader at Impact Early College High School. And our district coaches, Ms. Bechtel, Ms. Kamasa. Thank you.
Okay, for our next recognition, we have Eloy Chapa, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
Good evening, Mr. President, President Clem, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. The Human Resources Department would like to recognize the following clinical student teachers for their successful completion of their internship and being hired as full-time teachers in Goose Creek CISD. We are excited to be able to grow our own clinical teacher giants. I'm going to give them a little bit again. No, y'all are good. Y'all are good. How are you, sir? Good to see you. Going once? Okay. We also have two long-term employees who have been awarded TEA's Grow Your Own grant to assist them in completing their bachelor's degree and or their teaching certification. 100% of our Grow Your Own cohorts have graduated and will be serving as teachers in Goose Creek CISD. The first person we would like to recognize is Joycelyn Garcia. She has served as a bilingual ESL paraprofessional at Horace Mann for the last 3 years. She recently graduated and will be serving as a science teacher at Horace Mann Junior High next year. She was also awarded $12,000 to complete her bachelor's degree at the University of Houston Clear Lake. So congratulations, Joycelyn. Our next recipient is Malika King, who has served as a special education paraprofessional at E.F. Green and other campuses for the last 5 years. She recently graduated and will serve as a science teacher at Horace Mann Junior School. Malika was also awarded $12,000 to complete her bachelor's degree at the University of Houston Clear Lake. So congratulations, Malika. We would also recognize this evening Christina Thomas, who will be teaching 7th grade science at Gentry Junior High. No. I'm good.
Got your green shirt.
I do have a green shirt. I don't know what it is. Okay, now with us, not individuals not being able to be with us tonight, but have completed our Grow Your Own program, were Jessica Martinez, who will be an orchestra teacher at Baytown Junior, Chelsea Linia, first grade self-contained at Carver, Olivia Waterstreet, who will be teaching 6th or 8th grade ELA at CBJ, Ashley King, who will be teaching 6th through 8th grade ELA at Gentry Junior High, Amanda Luna, who will be teaching American Sign Language at Goose Creek Memorial, Jennifer Hernandez, who will be a 4th grade teacher at Harlem Elementary, and then also Halen Harrison, who will be a 1st grade teacher at Pumphrey Elementary. Also, a special thanks to Mrs. Lisa Steele, who helps coordinate and oversees our Grow Your Own program. Thank y'all.
I would love to learn sign language.
Okay, and this concludes our recognitions and acknowledgments. So at this time, we'll turn it back over to President Clem and Dr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Dr. Bollinger. We will now have a public hearing on the application of Borosan Management Pipe USA pursuant to Chapter 313.
Welcome.
Good evening, President Clem, Dr. O'Brien, Board of Trustees. This evening we are going to discuss the public hearing for Borosan Manson Pipe US and the Chapter 313 application they have submitted. And with that, I will turn it over to Attorney Kevin O'Hanlon.
Mr. President, members of the board, pleasure to be here tonight. This is the what I would call the near final step with respect to Borosan Management, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is the approval of the application and the agreement as was presented to you. However, on the end of last week, the company wanted to file an amendment with respect to this agreement. The amendment will be to put the project off a year. They're here if you have any questions of them. The reason why we're doing it this way is the Controller's Office wanted all of the original applications in before the end of June. We're now a little bit past. It's safer to complete this and do an amendment. The amendment will be a much shorter document and a shorter procedure. It's simply going to change the date should you choose to authorize that. So let's go back to the first one. The task at hand at this public hearing is the original application and discussion with respect to that. The process requires the now familiar, I believe, there'll be an action item in a minute on the conflict of interest or a chance to fill out conflict of interest forms. On the action items, there's a discussion of findings with respect to the project. The project was submitted to the Controller's Office. The Controller's Office conducted its review under Chapter 313, determined both that the project was eligible, that it met all the conditions with respect to job creation.
Excuse me 1 second. I can't hear you. Could you move your mic up closer to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I can do that. Sorry. That it met all the conditions with respect to creations of jobs, that was a qualifying application in that it was manufacturing, meeting all the criteria, Chapter 313, and that the Controller's Office does this econometric analysis that the state will get over the life of the agreement a return on its investment over a period of 25 years, and that it met that condition as well. Based on that, the Controller's Office issued a certificate that this was a qualifying project, and we have negotiated an agreement that we believe is in the best interest of the district that will return significant revenues to the district over the life of this. We'll get into that in that final presentation. That's pretty much it with respect to the approval of this. You guys are familiar with this process. We've done a number of these. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And since this is a public hearing, if anybody in the audience has questions, now would be the time for you to speak up. Or board members now. Okay.
Let me say this, just that as I would be remiss if I did not say this at a public hearing. The agreement that we have negotiated on behalf of the district has the following significant the points, if you will. No taxpayers' taxes will go up because this agreement has been entered, has been accepted by the board. In fact, the opposite is true. First off, the company will cover any shortfall. Most of the shortfall is covered under the change of how the state aid formula works. Once the state issues a certificate and approves the project, then this is the state will cover any revenue loss and local revenues associated with the granting of this, and so that's been done. So there's going to be no negative M&O tax consequence. This does not work perfectly. There are some revenue adjustments that have to be made. The agreement that we'll present to you for adoption in a little bit provides that for each year of the agreement, we're going to make a calculation that says how much the district would have gotten in the event that it would not have entered into the agreement, and we make the same calculation applying the values associated with the agreement. And if there's a shortfall, the company pays it. They've agreed to that. So that ensures both the state aid formula and the hold harmless or indemnity provision provides that there's no loss. In addition to that, the company has agreed to pay supplemental payments to the district in the amount of several $1 million, which can be used for any lawful purpose associated with public education that deemed to be acceptable by this board. So that provides additional revenues to the district for the education of its scholastics. Given the district's budget size, it's incremental, but in these days, everything helps in terms of that. In terms of looking under rocks for any knowledge you can in order to educate your kids in these circumstances. Finally, with respect to the taxpayers, the addition of this value and this project would not be located here in the absence of this agreement. The addition of this project increases the taxable value of the district writ large for debt service purposes. When that happens, the values go up, the debt service taxes go down. Again, it's incremental, but anything helps to the taxpayers trying to make mortgage payments and things of that nature. So that the taxpayers receive a benefit in the interest and sinking fund tier for the district having executed this agreement. So taxpayers get a benefit, kids get a benefit, and the company gets a benefit, because the state is authorized to cover that. So we will make sure that the board has instructed us to make sure that happens as part of its due diligence. We feel confident the agreement we're going to present you carries forward those objectives.
Terrific. Any questions at all? All right, and then I will declare this public hearing closed, and we will move to the next agenda item. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in a minute. All right, let's see. Script. All right. There it goes. All right, we are now at citizens participation, and citizens participation is the time that the board will hear public concerns or public comments from those who have properly signed up to address the board. At regular board meetings, the board shall permit public comment regardless of whether the topic is an item on the agenda posted with notice of this meeting. Each speaker is reminded that he or she is limited in his or her presentation to a maximum of 3 minutes, which can further be limited or reduced by the presiding officer. We will not do that tonight. Please also remember you should respect confidentiality concerns and refrain from attacking the personal character of any individual student, staff member, or board member in addressing concerns or comments. Pursuant to state law and board policy BE legal, the board cannot consider or take action on concerns at this meeting unless they pertain to an item on the posted agenda for this meeting. Any deliberation or decision on an item that is not posted for consideration at this meeting shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda of a future meeting. There's an invisible line here that says, please silence all cell phones. So, with that said, we will ask Michelle, thank you, Burgett. I couldn't decide what the last 3 letters were. Mr. Sampson, our secretary, will time you. He'll tell you when you have 1 minute left and then when time's up. And the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you so much for everything that you guys all do at Goose Creek. I am a parent in Goose Creek. My kids go to Highlands Elementary and Hopper Primary. And a few concerns I have about guns on campus that I would like addressed for this following year is having safety procedures for threats like we had on December 17th, 2021, which was National Shootout Day. I personally kept my child home on this day and would have felt safer sending him to school if procedures such as no backpacks in place would have been in place. The next thing I have was what we are learning from Uvalde is there may have been an open or unlocked door. And I know at Goose Creek, there's high security in the first 3 doors that you enter. But however, how lenient is the policy for staff leaving side doors or back doors open? That's something I personally couldn't find in the policies, and I would like that addressed as a parent. And then recently, there was an incident at Goose Creek Memorial High School with a gun on campus. It seems that the school day went back to normal, and my questions are, what if there was a second shooter on campus like Columbine? Another is, would it be safer to have ended the day altogether? And moving forward, on that particular week when something like that happens, similar to the December 17th National Shootout Day, would it be better to have again, like a no backpack policy for the rest of the week? And just observation as a parent, again, we need to work as a team, but I was reading on the threads of the news that the students and parents were told that if they took their child home, it would count towards their summer school absence. And I'm sure you're allowed very few absences in summer school. So I'm just wondering, oh, okay. So, is attendance more important than safety? Just a broader perspective. If we're looking at what we learned from COVID and what we're learning now from Uvalde, is attendance always first priority before safety? That's really all I have as a parent and resident here. I would like these issues addressed. And again, thank you all so much. We know that you and the teachers and staff are working really hard, but as a parent, that's my concern about sending 2 kids to school to 2 different campuses where there's just no way
there's not enough hands on deck for situations like that. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your comments.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker will be Kim Kostek. And you know the drill.
Did y'all change the podium?
Probably. Mr. Sampson, are we ready? All right, the floor is yours.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. O'Brien. I have 2 upcoming seniors, and I'm pleading that you allow them the opportunity to close this chapter on their home turf. And if Pasadena can host 7 high school graduations in an outdoor stadium, we can go back to doing it in ours. After reviewing tonight's presentation, here are some concerns that really stand out to me. Why the heck do we need to paint the bathrooms prior to graduation? Safety. Are we tracking the heat-related incidents or accidents that have occurred? Moving to an indoor facility has not made it safer for our students and their guests. They have had incidents every single year when families are being rushed outside. An indoor arena is giving them false sense of security and that there will be protection from the middle of the day heat. There have been students involved in accidents, and I personally know of a heat-related stroke that happened this year after attending Sterling. If Stalwart has this many deficiencies, then how can we host things like football game playoffs and massive Lee Sterling events? The PowerPoint doesn't discuss ticket limitations. Let us keep the live stream option, of course, but the community isn't forced to stay away because they just don't have enough tickets unless we need to adapt for rain. I get that there is a possibility for rain, which may limit tickets, but it's nothing more than a possibility. And in my research, that I have found 0 precipitation on any graduation day that we have chosen in the last 13 years. I would have went back further, but I just couldn't find the dates. The presentation is also lacking true cost transparency. Where are the rest of the expenses? Because facility rental isn't the only expense that the district absorbs. Hello, buses and their escorts and security. So just to say the least, including the empty buses that are technically transporting air that I passed on the highway this year. I can't even do the math to see exactly what the cost differences are because facility costs plus district in-house expenses minus the $70K at Stallworth, and let's not forget the additional cost that it is to the families. If we have $115K to throw away at a rental fee, then theoretically we can find some money to reinvest back into Stallworth. We are also taking money away from our local economy, and parents have to sometimes worry about missing their kids' graduation and walk because of traffic. I encourage that you search GCCISD graduation on Facebook, and the search did me all too well. Every single year since October 22nd, 2012, when this board said that they wanted or started having the conversation about having graduation elsewhere, there has been kickback from the community. There was even a 2016 poll that the Baytown Sun did where 91% of those that responded said they wanted it back in Baytown. It is a hot topic and our community wants it back. Honor them. It is time to bring graduation back home.
Time.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker will be Sarah Graham. And the floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, board, President Clem, and Dr. O'Brien. I'm actually the science content specialist over at the great Robert E. Lee, and I'm also here to talk about graduation tonight. I actually graduated at Stalwart Stadium back in '99, and I've been an educator over at Lee. I think I'm going on my 9th year now. My daughter graduated in 2018 as a Gander, and my son will soon be a Gander graduate in 2025. Graduation ceremonies need to be brought back to Baytown. This is what's going to be best for the students, for the family, and quite frankly for our community, the community economy as well. At my daughter's 2018 graduation, REL was actually the middle time slot. It was around 2 o'clock or 2:30. I actually had to drop her off at Lee High School around noon so that she could ride the buses and all those things. I got in the car with my family. My mother's disabled, had to load her up, get her oxygen, and head out over to Beaumont. We got to Ford Arena, and as I arrived at Beaumont, I had to fight traffic into the lot because there was families from the first ceremony leaving. The ceremony actually went well, but the dismissal ended up being awful, hell, if you may. We were quickly ushered outdoors in the 4 p.m. heat into a very hot, unshaded parking lot. There were lots of pictures trying to be taken, kids trying to say their goodbyes, people, giving presents and things like that. Zero shade. Once we got everybody back into the vehicles, we then had to fight traffic again because remember the third ceremony is now going to be coming in. We got about 5 miles from Ford Arena and there was a student-involved accident. We then ended up in a very strange area with no cell phone for 1 hour and 24 minutes. We calculated it. It became a bigger issue for me and a team of parents because we were on the project graduation team and needed to be back here to prep for that to keep our kids safe for the night at project graduation. Anyways, let's see. Distance played a role. That was the point of that.
Excuse me, 1 minute.
After that experience, my research revealed that weather, space, cost, and time efficiency were the original reasons that we chose to move to either Beaumont or Houston. And those reasons have pretty much been debunked at this point. Cost, we have buses. I found out we have to take our own security. Gas is astronomical. Safety, there was actually people getting overheated in the parking lot. The car accidents, by the way, our student ended up being fine, although shaken. Space, limited tickets, inability for some to travel. And weather, as we know, is a gamble no matter what, even when we're busing our hundreds of students on I-10 in tornadic activity. That's happened before. Even though I spoke mostly of my 2018 experience, it is not unique. It's not a unique set of circumstances. I've attended as a parent, but I've also attended as an employee for many years. And I just want you to know that an employee experience or the board experience is a little different than the parent experience because as an employer or board, we tend to get out there and stay out there all day. We're not doing the back and forth. Move it home. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker tonight will be Daryl Banks. The floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, members of the board and Dr. O'Brien, GCM staff. My name is Daryl Banks. Many of you recognize me from my involvement with the district over the years. One of you was actually an educator while I was a student at Rochester High School. Won't point any fingers there. But I'm also here to discuss with you the hosting of the graduation at off-site facilities. My outtake's a little different than those that are here. I read up the information provided on the district site concerning this topic, and I'm hopeful the discussion tonight brings to light a little bit more detail. On the presentation, the numbers for 2012 are the numbers shown in the report. The cost total graduation at Stalwart was $70,000. This report states specifically this includes overtime pay, security, night watch, contract labor, materials, rental, and time loss. It also lists renovation costs for things specific for hosting graduation at Stalwart. However, it only mentions a contract cost of $69,000 for the rental of what is now the Fertitta Center. There's no mention of the extended costs, the overtime, and the transportation and so forth. So my first question is what is the final cost for that year after you include the overtime, the transportation, the equipment rentals, those things? Is it truly $1,000 savings to travel 35 miles into Houston over hosting it here in town? Most importantly, I noticed that the data on this information given specifically was 10 years old. It's from the 2012. We've had 10 graduations since then. After the first year, it becomes very, very vague. The range of expenses is anywhere from $18,000 to $115,000, and it only gives Ford Center as the most cost-effective. There is no detail. How can we make an effective decision on what facility to use or where should we have graduation if we don't have current, detailed information to make the most educated choice? And when will this information be available? And will it be available to the public?
1 minute.
Okay, as a graduate from Rochester, Sterling, I walked across Stalwart as a graduate. My oldest son walked across Ford Center in 2018, and my middle child walked across this year at the Fertitta Center. I'm not here to try to encourage you where to have graduation. I've experienced all three. I see the benefits, and I see the negative points in all three places. What I'm here to ask is, how do we get the most detailed information to make the most educated decision as to what's best for our students and what's best for our district? Do we continue our current path and invest in money outside of our district to host outside the facility, or do we bring it back home to invest into our current existing facilities, or do we plan for our students' future and invest in a new facility that will be able to host those and update our current facilities, which we all know are in dire need of some restoration? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. All right. All right. We will move to our item number 7, or number 6, which is closed session. Pursuant to Texas Education Code 551.074, the board will recess into closed session. No decisions will be made while the board is in closed session. The time is 6:38 p.m. No decisions were made while the board was in closed session. The next item on our agenda is reorganization of the Board of Trustees. I seek a motion concerning the Office of President.
I move for Ricky Clem to be president.
I have a motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mr. Renteria that myself will be president. Any discussion? No. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed?
I was kind of slow on my hand.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I owe you one.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
And I will abstain. So I have 5 for, 0 against, or I think, and 1 abstention. So the motion passes. Yeah. Now I seek a motion concerning vice president.
Make a motion that Tiffany Guy be vice president.
A second.
I have a motion from Mr. Cotter and a second from Mrs. Barat-Tim that Tiffany Guy be vice president. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed and abstain. I have 5 for, 0 against, and 1 abstention. I seek a motion concerning secretary.
I make a motion for Howard Sampson as secretary.
Second. I have a motion from Mrs. Barat-Tims and a second from Mr. Renteria that Howard Sampson be secretary. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand.
I can't raise my.
All opposed and abstain. I have 5 for, 0 against, and 1 abstention, and now we're even. And finally, I seek a motion, or actually, I'm going to make a motion that Helen Barat-Tims be assistant secretary.
I'll second.
I have a motion from myself and a second from Mrs. Guy that Helen Barat-Tims be assistant secretary. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed and abstain. I have 5 for, 0 against, and 1 abstention. So Ms. Barat-Tim, I'm sorry? So the motion carries.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
Now it's musical chairs.
Yes, and now we are going to take just a moment to swap seats just a little bit.
What? Why don't we wait till after?
Actually, I think I just need Ms. Guy here, and just you two.
Okay.
And take your 20-pound nameplate and your 2-ounce nameplate with you.
Excuse me.
I'm going to miss Shay, but I'm going to welcome you, Ms. Guy, to come over.
You guys would be surprised how different things look just with a little shift.
He'll get it.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You thought I was kidding, didn't you?
I'm going to miss you, Tiffany.
Oh, you dropped it. That's what happened.
Oh, no.
Here you go. I'll grab mine.
Okay.
Hey, welcome to the neighborhood.
All right.
Yeah. Don't bring no pie ice cream and nothing.
Mr. Cotter, I overstated something. Ms. Barat-Tims should sit where you are. So one more set of musical chairs.
Well, goodbye to the neighborhood.
It was good while it lasted.
Yeah, I know. It's our move out. Yeah.
No. I sat in that chair down there for a long time, and it's good weather.
Yeah, that's why I started. I love that chair. I love that end.
Yep. Maybe we can move Miss Garcia.
Yeah, that'd be good. We can move down the end. Yeah.
Okay. Barely made a year. This keeps us on our toes.
Well,
all right, we will now move to item 9, discussion items, and with a plethora of superintendent's reports. Dr. O'Brien?
Just a few, really, 6. Not saying it's the most ever, but
remember,
they are somewhat related.
We cut 2 of them.
That's right. So we'll invite up to the table Ms. Bridget Clark for our 22-23 budget and compensation update. Okay. And her team.
Yes, please.
Let's see, robotics.
Welcome, Renee. Welcome, Ron. State champion.
Yep.
So cool. So cool.
Oh, that's the guy that.
Good evening again, President Clem, board members, and Dr. O'Brien. This is what we've all been waiting for. We're going to hone in on the compensation plan. We've brought before you a couple of scenarios. So some of it will be repetition, so we won't go through all the slides in detail because you've seen them before. But I also have Ms. Renee Woodruff, the Director of Finance, and also Dr. Wyatt has so graciously volunteered to support us up here as well in case you have questions on compensation. With that, I will jump right on in. And again, we're just going to go over the objectives and assumptions and estimated tax rate and preliminary values compensation scenarios, and then all of the 4 budgets listed, and then the calendar and next step. This is a repetitive slide. It's just going over those same budget objectives again. For your information, budget assumptions, same thing. This is new information. This is what we are estimating our tax rates and based on preliminary values, what we expect it to be. Now, granted, this will not be final until we receive our certified values on the 25th of July. And then subsequently when TEA releases the official maximum compress rate. But at the moment, it looks as though we're going to have a tax compression of just over a penny for the M&O rate, and we expect our INS tax rate to remain the same, which gives us an overall decrease of that just over a penny for our total tax rate. Just one thing I'll point out is the total tax rate we've decreased as a district by once this is implemented, if these numbers hold when certified values come in, we will have decreased our overall tax rate just over 7.5 cents since 2019. So that's important to point out. And then most of that is attributable, just over 5 cents of that is attributable to our INS tax rate being lower than what we originally planned during the 2019 bond. So that is great news for taxpayers. Did anyone have any questions on this particular slide before we move forward? Okay. So again, this is a repetitive slide and the compensation plan budgetary considerations. And then we'll get right down here to our compensation highlights. This is it might be the largest compensation package that we have offered definitely in my tenure, both of my tours here. And it's with scenario 1, it's approximately $11.8 million package, and 2 is approximately $12.5 million package. So that is something we're excited to be able to offer our employees. It also includes a general pay increase, as you know, of 2% for all employees, which equates to about $1,500 for teachers. We're starting teacher salary is $61,250. Retention stipends, and this is, going to be up to you all to vote on here shortly. Up to $1,500 for all employees with contract start dates on or before 6/30 of 2022. And then up to 2 additional personal wellness days for employees who do not accrue vacation days. And then we are also proposing increased health insurance contributions, anywhere from $420 to $840, depending on which scenario is adopted. Is there anything else in the highlights you'd like to point out, Dr. Wyatt, or does that pretty much cover it? Okay, great. All right, with that, we're going to move into the 2 proposed scenarios. We did send this out, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't get any feedback, so I'm guessing that means you like it, and it's pretty much exactly what you all asked for. We added the 2 additional local days, and then also 1 additional local day in scenario 2. But scenario 1 has retention stipend for all current full-time employees returning in 2023, and that does include admin. That's everybody, for $1,500, and the cost of that is $4.951 million. And then the 2 additional days, this is based on subs, is going to be about $734,000, and that gives a total under scenario 1 for stipends at $5.686 million. Then scenario 2 has $500 for all employees given at around December to defray the inflation costs, and then an additional $1,000 stipend for teachers, librarians, and nurses, manual trades, clerical, those employees returning in 2023. Again, it's that contract start date of 6/30/2022 or prior. And then just in this scenario, we have 1 additional day, which is $367,000, for a total of $5.486 million in scenario 2. So does anyone have any questions on the scenarios? No? Pretty cut and dry. All right, so that, if you recall, will be incorporated into the next slide, which is the entire budget, so you can see how it factors into the big picture. And you'll note the items in green here. These are the items that have to be decided upon this evening by the board. Scenario 1, the compensation package, first of all, everything is exactly the same except for the items in green. The compensation package, 2% general pay increase, is about $5.3 million. That's included on, scenario 1 and scenario 2. The first 3 items here in green, the compensation package and then the insurance contributions, those are going to be considered permanent and recurring. So, because I don't think you'd want to increase the insurance contribution and then take it back. I mean, you could, but I'm just assuming that would be permanent and not changed. So increasing it to $35, increasing it by $35 would cost approximately $861,000, and then increasing the contribution by $70 would be about $1.7 million. And that just adds to the ongoing deficit. So for 2024, that would come back to us to have to try to make up that deficit number. So that's just something to be mindful of there. And then I factor in scenario 1 stipend numbers, and you can see it's the numbers that we just discussed, and it's 5.6 for scenario 1 and 5.4 for scenario 2. And the bottom line numbers you can see estimated for ESSER remaining funds at 6/30 of 2023. It's just over $3 million in scenario 1 and right at $2.5 million for scenario 2. So that That's how it looks in the big financial picture for each scenario with all items incorporated. Did anyone have any questions on this slide?
Bridget, I know you've been preparing these for months now, and I just think it's important to take a step back and look at why are we doing this. And Goose Creek has always been in the top 10 compensation in our region, and because things have become much more competitive in the marketplace because of teacher shortage and administrative shortage for that matter, we're having to step it up.
Right.
And we did a TASB review of compensation, Dr. Wyatt, back in March, early April, and there have been a lot of changes in neighboring districts just since that time, making it even more competitive. So
yes,
the idea is to hire high-quality teachers and administrators and staff and retain them. So that's why this presentation has two components to it as opposed to in the past just the one component, compensation only.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
All right.
Can I ask?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
I'm a first-year teacher coming into the district, so I would make the $61,000. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm a second-year teacher in the district. Will the compensation that I have as a second-year teacher with experience be less than a first-year teacher?
No.
We would, whenever we apply our raises and do everything else, we always make sure that our teachers, more experience they have, the more they make. It does kind of follow almost a stair look to it. So that teacher with that 1 year would make more than a new teacher.
Yeah, that's just curious about that because I'd hate to be a third-year teacher and someone coming in making more. I'm going like, wait a minute.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I wanted to ask.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that is the wrap-up for general fund, basically. So we will have a action item, very first action item we have once we're done with superintendent reports will relate to this compensation package, and I also attached just these specific slides for that action item if you need to be able to see it again. So we'll have an action item shortly. And with that, I will turn the floor to Ms. Woodruff, and she's going to talk about the additional budgets.
Good evening.
You knew that was coming.
Yes, I did. I will be presenting the debt service, school nutrition, and capital improvement funds to you. First, we're going to start with the debt service fund. The total revenue is projected at $54.6 million, which is up $2.5 million from the prior year's adopted budget of $52.1 million. This increase is primarily from the incremental property tax values. The total expenditures are $54.6. This gives us a projected fund balance of $23.6, of which includes restricted amounts of $11.6 million for the August 15th and October 1st bond payments, and we have unrestricted fund balance of $12 million. I'd like to also make note that the district has paid the QZAB 2005 bond off during the current year, so we will no longer need to restrict those funds going forward. Any questions on debt service fund?
Keep bringing good news.
Here we have the school nutrition fund. The 22-23 revenue is projected at $14.2 million. Total expenditures, $18 million, with an ending fund balance of $5.8 million, which equates to 32% or 3.8 months of annual operating expenses. And that's pretty much it there.
Fund balance, reserve for food service. Okay.
And lastly, we have the capital improvement fund. As a reminder, the CIP budget is not required to legally be adopted by the Board of Trustees. However, we are presenting it to provide information and full transparency to both the board and the community. The capital improvement plan is developed to account for projects that may span multiple fiscal years. The CIP fund is funded by the Chapter 313 revenues, FTZ payments, funds received from the sales of equipment, and any transfers from the general fund that is approved by you. We are projecting revenues of $14.9 million, and the projects submitted for the 22-23 year total approximately $13.9 million. And leaving a fund balance at the end of the year of $1.6 million. Any questions?
Stalwart Stadium renovations. What was that?
Which one is?
Dr. McCall, you're up.
So the Stalwart Stadium renovations would include, if we move forward with renovations to the stadium, anything to make the stadium functional. And I know that we have to discuss the details of the report at our next board meeting to share with you some of the renovation needs that are at Stalwart. With the support of Dr. O'Brien, we were able to place money into the capital improvement budget so that in the event that we needed to move forward with any type of renovations to the stadium to make sure that it's safe and functional for our students and staff to use, then that money is allocated there for that purpose.
Excuse me, is that structural improvements or
it could
cosmetic?
Be used for whatever is needed, but the priority, of course, would be if we have any type of structural issues, if we have any type of equipment issues that need to be replaced to make the stadium usable before we start working on anything cosmetic, of course.
My biggest question is, have we allowed any money for parking lot improvements?
So that's a part of the $8.6 million. If we deem it appropriate to pave the parking lot, then that's where those funds will come from.
Yeah.
Of course, these monies will be available, if I'm not mistaken, January of 23. Is that correct? January of 23. So that's when we'll have access to these funds in order to be able to make decisions on what we need to do at Stalwart Stadium.
Okay. Do we have any kind of ballpark figure on how much it would cost to do the whole parking lot? Because I know when they decided to do buses on that one side, and they was talking about putting asphalt, and I was telling them, no, you need to put concrete, and 3 months later we had potholes deep enough to bury buses in, and, so.
Yes, sir. So we've done some work with current pricing of concrete. It would take about $4 million to pave both sides of the parking lot at Stalwart Stadium.
About $4 million on each side?
Yes, sir. No, $4 million total.
Total?
Total, yes, sir, for the home and visitor side.
Oh, okay. So this is just off the top of my head. Have we ever thought about, like we did the the scoreboard, and somebody committing some money for the scoreboard, if I'm not mistaken? Have we ever thought about someone committing some money for us the parking lot and naming it after the person that would commit the money for the parking lot?
Well, I can't say it's something I've been a part of as far as discussions, but it doesn't sound like a bad idea to pursue.
Well,
any opportunities we get for partnerships, I think we're open for that, even if it's concrete.
If I could interrupt for 1 second. You mentioned that there's going to be a report next meeting.
Yes, sir. There'll be a report next meeting
concerning Stalwart, the stadium, everything.
We had a facilities conditions assessment done, and so we'll have that information prepared to share with the board next board meeting.
Plus and minus.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear that.
Yeah, I am too.
Thank you, Dr. McCall.
Yes.
All right. Anything else for capital projects or anything we've been presented so far? Okay, we'll talk again in a few minutes.
All right, that concludes the presentation, and the only thing that we have left after this evening's meeting is to adopt the entire budget, debt service, food service, and general fund. And that'll be on the 20th.
All right.
And the motion would be to approve scenario 1 or scenario 2?
That's going to be up to the board.
So that's tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight we're doing compensation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be action item A.
Yes.
I believe. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Some of my favorite people are next.
All right, our next report is Goose Creek CISD Bond Remarketing Program Update. Ryan O'Hara.
And Bridget.
Welcome, Ryan.
Good evening, Dr. O'Brien, members of the board. Ryan O'Hara with Huntington. If you'll remember, back in 2014, we embarked on a variable rate bond program for the district. Since that time, we've had a big dramatic move in interest rates. And the next slide kind of shows you that. The green line is where we are today with interest rates. You can see they've elevated dramatically. Last year, we were the orange line at the bottom. And then back in 2020, we were the blue line there in the middle. So with the Fed announcing that there's between 5 and 7 increases on short-term rates, the market's anticipating that, and that's where we are on the interest rate cycle. We do have coming up on August 15th, a reset for some of those, it's about $32 million in those 2014 bonds. If we reset those bonds in that same variable rate mode, this is the rates we'd be looking at a 1 year at a 2.4%, dramatically higher than we've been at, and the 5 year out at a 3%. So it's our recommendation to the board that we go ahead and close out this program, fix these bonds out. If you go to, let's see, the next page, page 5, I guess, one more. Highlighted in green there, it's the $32 million, 20,000. It's the 2024 term bond of this. It's coming up for reset on August the 15th. We can fix these bonds out in today's market at a 3.69%. And if you go to the next page after that, if we do fix these out, what we would have achieved in this variable rate bond program versus what we would have issued these bonds originally at fixed rate, that will save district's taxpayers about $16.5 million. I was listening intently when Bridget was talking about the debt service tax rate pennies that we've achieved over the past few years, and this is a direct result of that. We also have on October a bigger chunk of bonds, $59.335 million. It's a 2049 term bond. We are same situation. We got interest rates elevated. We recommend fixing these out. These bonds are a little longer on the maturity schedule, so we could fix these out at a 3.97% in today's market. Again, this is a bigger chunk of bonds, so the savings has been more dramatic since 2019. It's about just under $20.8 million in savings to taxpayers. So if you're doing the math there, that's $37.3 million in savings to taxpayers. So this has been a very successful program, but it's just time to fix them out, take our gains, and then we'll evaluate the interest rate market as we go forward with future bond programs. But it's been very successful. It's actually, I've worked on 16, I did the math today, I've worked on 16 adjustable rate bond programs. It's number 3. So you got the bronze medal. So congratulations. So, but with your approval tonight on action items, I think B and C, we will get to work on fixing these out and securing these rates for you as we go forward. Be happy to answer any questions you might have. It's a very interesting economy that we're dealing with out there, and I expect interest rates to kind of keep going up with the economy and with the Fed's moves. But be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that report.
I know.
Well,
out of 16, though, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
We'll take it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, energy. Ms. Clark, are you just staying?
I'm just going to stay, yes.
Next up, we have NRG Cedar Bio 5 LLC project update and letter of intent.
Mr. O'Hanlon? This is just a discussion. It's not a presentation, so.
Because I didn't read this. I read the letter.
All right. Oh, energy. All right. Right. So when they presented that the energy is presented an application to you. It was submitted to the Controller's office. Currently, there is a dispute in the Controller's office. And it has to do with the definition of what a combined cycle the turbine is and what kind of fuel it has to use. The statute provides an alternative carbon source, but it doesn't say alternative to what. It's clear that these guys were going to use the intention was to use natural gas as kind of the boiler fuel or whatever with respect to that. And the question is whether that qualifies. I don't know. Neither does the Controller's office. The Controller's office is going back and forth about that. I recall, if you will, I think I told you that night, they never approved one of these before. Right. This was originally written that was stuck in for what was called then a clean coal project that was going to be outside of Odessa, and that was hunting a federal grant for back in the coal days. Coal's become actually it is a 4-letter word, but this was natural gas. They are, I think the company has despaired of getting this through, to be honest with you, but they are trying to force the issue for the Controller's office, and we're kind of conspiring with them right now to get them a letter for their rationale to do that, so they can turn around and use it to try and get the legislation to cure that deficiency. So
the LOI, the letter of intent, is no more the board's endorsement of the contract they've already approved. Is that correct?
It's of the project that we've already approved the submission of. It's sufficiently conditional to give us an out in the event that the statute doesn't work. It just says we're intending to support the project. We like the project. We'd like to give it a deal if it's eligible, and we get the right terms. Which is not really any different than where we are today with an application that's accepted, but the agreement hasn't been negotiated. So we're in exactly kind of those positions at this point in time. So that they're asking for that. They're seriously trying to set this up for the next legislature so that they can get a clear response. They can get a clear expression of our interest in wanting to do it, so that they can get language in statutory language that will allow them to move forward. The good news is that they're still intending to build this project if they possibly can, and so that's what's going on. They haven't gone away, but they've run into this, and like I said, this was the first time up for a combined cycle gas. I had to look up Mitsubishi. It all had all the tech on the internet. Once I got the model number, that actually it's a surprising amount of stuff on Google about it. But nobody's ever built one in this state, so that's what the issue is. They're asking for the letter. I've reviewed it. I didn't see anything that would particularly create any kind of issue for the board down the road in the event that you decided at some point that you didn't like the project. There's no entanglement particularly. It's just that you're interested in the project.
So it's just giving us a little continuance.
Yes. Okay. It's just we like the project, and we generally support it.
Right. Anybody have any questions?
Mm-hmm. Comptroller was kicked to third, and while it's on hold, we're saying we still support the project.
Yeah, we're not going to defy the controller's office or anything. It's just a matter
Just a letter of intent.
We're still interested in having this project located in our community.
Right.
In any way, are we endorsing that we believe it qualifies, or are we just sitting back and supporting the project if the comptroller approves it?
No, the controller's office hasn't definitively said no at this point. They've whispered no.
Yeah.
And they're resisting mightily being put on the spot by the company to say no because they don't want to explain why no. But I don't think they can get away with that. I think they're going to have to explain why, which is what the company's looking for so that they can write the remedial piece of legislation to fix the problem.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I bet you're up for Air Liquide.
Yes, the next one you all have, this is new. This is Air Liquid. Is it Air Liquide?
Liquide.
Liquide.
However.
Yeah, I said it in Texan. But this is a new one, and it's a sizable project. It's $500 million. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. O'Hanlon.
The applicant is before you. It's a industrial gas plant. They manufacture industrial gases. This project is scheduled to start at 26, 27 in terms of that. So it's a little bit out. We'll have to see the developments of that. Everybody is filing applications. I think I mentioned this the last time. Everybody's filing applications at the far end of the possibility because the controller's office, because in light of the statutory, at the end of the statute in 313, they think they can extend one farther into the future. They can't extend it back to closer to the present. So everybody's filing applications out farthest out that they can, so that gives them the largest room to do that, especially with supply chain issues and construction and whatnot in terms of that. So this is out a couple of years, but this is a solid project on a relatively clean industrial process. That's not going to add significantly to air quality issues or anything in the community. It's a sizable investment. Y'all are talking about bonds. We should try and encourage any addition to the INS tax base that we can in terms of that as a significant assist to the consumers.
And just add, these agreements are the ones that add to our capital projects funds.
Yes, not only that, but they also
do not impact the taxpayer.
It also
benefits the taxpayer.
It gives a break to the taxpayers who are paying off existing debt. So it has the effect of helping them out too in terms of that, and we should try and encourage that wherever we can. This is one of those that will, and along with the other ones that are up there, will help you. Also create some capacity as y'all are chasing growth and new facilities and things of that nature, which is always a good thing.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
All right. And there will be action items related. Did you have something, sir?
No.
Okay. There will be action items related to Borson and Air Liquid down in the action area. So, but not for.
So don't leave.
Don't leave yet. It's only to accept the application.
Yeah. Don't leave yet. I mean, we may need you again when we get to action items.
We're not leaving.
Okay.
I promise.
All right. Let's do something I know something about.
Let's invite, thank you very much, Mr. O'Hanlon.
Thank you.
Clark. Let's invite Mr. Ray Levan to the podium. He'll be doing a presentation on Robert E. Lee Marching Band Uniform Cycle Preview.
I was hoping he would wear it.
Patience.
I know. Patience.
Mr. Poulon?
Yes, sir.
All right, good evening, Dr. O'Brien, Board of Trustees. It's a pleasure to be in front of you once again. I will hopefully make this as pleasant as possible. It's my pleasure to introduce the marching band uniform that we're going to present to be updated for Robert E. Lee this evening. As you know, we have a specific process that we go through. So we have a uniform rotation. It was, in fact, paused due to the pandemic, but it is on a 7-year rotation. So this year, it will be Lee's turn to have new uniforms for the upcoming year. And our next rotation will be Sterling High School for next year, and GCM much farther than that. That's in 2026, 2027. So this is the rotation that, of course, I received, that I inherited, so we're sticking with it. Everything is working. So the last new uniforms were purchased for Lee High School in 2014. So it's been quite some time. They're doing an update. The actual price for the uniforms this year will be $162,450.84. We can make that even if Mr. Clem decides to kick in the 84 cents. And the vendor we're using is DeMolin Brothers. They are very, 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 very reputable marching band uniform company. And we've used them times before, and we're very excited to show you the sample uniform this evening. So as you can see, we have the sample uniform already. We have our lovely model, and Mr. Poulin will explain the uniform.
I'm just kidding. Honestly, would you go over where we can see?
Yeah,
sure.
And face out that way.
Yeah, awesome.
So I asked the designer that I worked with from DeMolin to write me a little something about the uniform. I met with them several times, but I'm just going to read it to you guys. The new uniform design for the Baytown Lee Band was developed based on a clear and decisive vision from the band director, Robert Poulin. In the initial meetings, Mr. Poulin indicated he wanted a uniform design that would pay homage to the program and the school's long history, while at the same time pushing the visual look of the band forward. The first and the main concept that was used was the abstract flying gander design. Previously, in the current uniform, the design ran horizontally across the chest, but on the new design, we have rotated it and expanded design elements across the body. The next consideration taken into account is creating a design that is modular, that can be changed and adjusted to suit the multiple different needs. The core of the body now employs a monochromatic look, while removable sleeves colored in maroon are trimmed in silver stripes to provide another traditional element to uniform's contemporary look.
Assistance?
Oh, can you do it? All right. Usually a two-person job. It's okay. The shako, the headwear design, was created to provide an echo to the coat with the single diagonal white stripe across the maroon field, with the right portion of the shako reversing the fade from the upper left portion of the coat, fading it back into the gray. This look can also be expanded by employing the shako wraps that will expand the look above the traditional shako line and give the performers an asymmetrical cap, which is what you're looking at right now. This is not a traditional shako line.
Is that a T-shirt or a?
It's a dry fit.
It's
Under
a pullover. Okay.
Under Armour, yeah.
Essentially.
Finally, let's see. It can be changed out to match the different halftime show themes. So, for example, what you saw my daughter take off was the traditional sleeves that we plan to wear for marching at football games, where a lot of maroon, a lot of color, a lot of vibrance. And then the uniform being gray offers a lot of opportunity for color scheming the programs themselves as we go through the years. And it's not hard to put a black or a white or a maroon or a blue or any kind of undershirt to recreate what we were doing for the marching shows. So we hope you like it. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I love it, and especially putting the flying geese at the diagonal, because the current uniform was like, what is that? And being serious for a moment, and having gone through 10 years of a uniform with a large number of buttons on it, we might want to rethink all those buttons and maybe ask what a cost difference would be in doing that same decoration and embroidery with the silver thread, because you're going to spend a fortune replacing buttons over the years.
I can do that.
Just see what they have to say about that, because, but you know,
in fact, last time
I ordered buttons by the thousands.
Correct.
Yeah.
They gave me a whole bag.
Yeah. But I love it.
But you want to see it closer?
You need the people to sew them on. That's the other problem.
Does the hat change?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All of it can be customized to fit whatever we want.
So Drumline could use that for Drumline show and look completely different.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's not the final Shako that she has on. Shako being the marching hat with the plume, that's what that is, a Shako. But that's an actual wrap. That's not the hat itself that's offering that shape. So they can change that wrap at any point. And that modularity is a trend that you'll see, especially when you see at area marching competition, state marching competition. Rarely do you see groups performing in their true blue school uniforms. Everything is very, very thematic. They're wearing these dry fit shirts and all of these great costumes, completely different hats. It's a completely different experience and program than what you would see at the stands in a football game.
What's it made of? What's the fabric?
It's a poly blend. It's lighter. It's washable. Thank goodness. No more requirements to be dry cleaned all the time. Yeah, it's very, very cool.
And your fine arts director thanks you for that. I appreciate that.
Dry cleaning's expensive.
Again, your fine arts director thanks you for that.
Are we looking this fall or next fall?
It's in process.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, this fall.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it. We think it's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Our final report of the evening is our graduation facility review. Dr. Bollinger, Abel, and Christy.
Yes, graduation was awesome, guys. She and Mr. Walterscheid make it happen. He gets them there, and she makes it happen. Yes.
Thank you. Great job.
Okay, good evening, Dr. O'Brien, members of the board. We were asked probably about a month and a half ago to bring a presentation to the board on the reason why graduation was moved away from Stalwart to a new venue. And so that's the purpose of this presentation, is to go back through that timeline and explain why the board made that decision at that time. Okay, so starting off with the history of this. So prior to 2013, all Goose Creek schools graduated at Stalwart Stadium. In Sure.
The question I asked for this was for the pros and cons of having it here in Baytown. Is what that was the original.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll hit that in this presentation.
I just wanted to clarify
Sure.
that. Okay.
So in 2012, the board at that time requested a report about the possibility of changing graduation venues due to reasons that we'll explain here in a second. And in this report, estimated costs were provided regarding Stalwart graduation versus other venues at that time. So the question is, why move graduation when we've had it at Stalwart all these years? And so several incidents and concerns occurred leading up to that decision that caused the board to ask the question, do we need to move Stalwart to another location? And the primary concerns are listed here. One dealt with heat-related issues that had happened at certain graduations. Also, there were weather concerns, as well as some questions about the facilities at Stalwart in holding graduation. So I'm going to go through these three items. So starting off with heat concerns, just throughout the year, several students, staff, and guests experienced heat-related symptoms or heat fatigue or heat exhaustion that led to medical attention. And so this was brought, again, at the time to the board. The concern, of course, would fluctuate depending on the graduation and the heat at that time. And so some graduations, it wasn't a major concern. Others, depending on the heat waves, it was. We did have emergency services on site at Stalwart just to make sure that situation was addressed. You know, with graduates walking across the stage, it's already a highly anxious event for students. They're very nervous, and so that probably also led to some of the issues with this. Another concern dealt with the weather, and so rainouts were always a possibility. Having 3 graduations back to back, there was always a backup plan. I know that whenever I was at Goose Creek Memorial my first year, we actually had, I believe it was Goose Creek Memorial's first graduation. I think you were there too. We had to move graduation last minute. There was rain in the forecast, and so it was moved from Stalwart to Goose Creek Memorial gym, and then there was an overflow room in the auditorium. And so that required moving some of the sound equipment and moving some of the staging equipment, and it resulted in several people not being able to participate in the live event. Again, I wasn't involved in that decision making, but that date probably could have also been put on another date later in the week. I'm sure there were reasons why they did not do that, possibly because family comes in from out of town and some other scheduling conflicts. So rainouts are a possibility, and this is probably one of the number one reasons as well why graduation was moved, why the decision was made by the board to move it to an indoor facility. And then third, sure.
Okay, I'm new on the board, but we just heard tonight that we didn't have no rain for 13 years back.
Yeah, so so I haven't confirmed that. I can tell you that with the GCM rainout, I believe that was 2010. Was that 2010 was their first graduation?
And I can speak to, if I can interject
Sure.
just to something. The first year that it, ma'am? And the first year it was moved out of town was when I was put in charge of coordinating the graduation ceremonies. And I remember in the middle of, like, right before one of them started, I remember some of the board members talking to each other, and they were talking to me saying that it's pouring in Baytown. It's absolutely pouring in Baytown. It was before one of the ceremonies started, and I remember them being relieved because it was such a difficult decision that the board had made. They knew that ceremony would have been rained out and moved inside. So I do know that day, that very first one.
Well, aren't we moved inside anyway?
Sir?
We're moved inside anyway.
It would have been moved inside.
We're moved inside now all the time anyway.
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to interject and let you know that very first year there was rain.
Okay.
So anyway, I'll turn it back over to you, Matt.
Okay. So in answering the question, what were the cons for Stalwart? The cons were the heat-related issues, the possible rainouts, and then also there were some concerns just with the facility. I think Abel can probably speak a little bit more on this, but whenever there were certain situations where if there were rain, and the parking lot was referenced earlier with Stalwart, that if there was rain 2 or 3 days beforehand, then parking was diverted to Gentry to help with that issue because of the muddy parking lot. I believe that happened one year. And then also just with the ramp, and if a family comes in for graduation and the elderly are there, then walking up that ramp, there were some issues just in assisting that. And so I think you're going to have this issue regardless of which facility you use. I think it's probably exacerbated at Stalwart just with the ramp and how steep it is with some of the elderly and some of those concerns. And so those were the reasons back in 2012. Based off our conversations, most of the people that were involved in graduation at that time are now retired, but we did talk to a few people who were still in the district who were part of that decision-making or at least fact-finding and research process, and so this is what we had gathered. Okay, so now Abel Narvez is going to talk a little bit about what it required to have graduation at Stalwart.
Good evening, all. So just in quick summary, it just means we need to have more staff working here at Stalwart as opposed to going to Fertitta, U of H, or Ford Park. It just takes additional crew to prepare the Stalwart Stadium to get ready for graduation. Maintenance and operations are mainly most of the staff that work and prepare that area, along with transportation planning and all the services. Preparation for Stalwart, we definitely will need to prepare, either purchase or construct a stage. Also chairs, transport all of our chairs or any kind of tables that we're going to be having, along with electrical. Now the sound equipment, we talked about updating Stalwart earlier, but our sound system that we have for our football games that has an echo. So talking to our electrical team, they said we'd need to purchase or rent some additional equipment to make sure it is going to be live and sound appropriate for our graduation. We talked about preparing the stadium. Of course, we want it to be looking the best. We doing some pressure washing. If you've been by recently, we have a little bit of unsightly area on some of our concrete, so we try to prepare those. And of course, upgrade our restrooms the best we can. And some areas that require paint, we would add that. We're not going to paint the whole facility. In addition to getting it ready before graduation, also preparing it or taking everything back after graduation, of course, in addition to the stage and event breakdown. Some of that preparedness could be done before and definitely afterwards. We don't want to have high, costly equipment staying there overnight, getting ruined. So if we typically have a graduation on a Friday or Saturday, then we typically have crews working all weekend to make sure we get all of our expensive items and everything else out of harm's way and stored appropriately so nobody be tempted to go and get any of our items for their own personal benefit. Stalwart estimated cost in 2012, we kind of approximated when this decision was made, around $70,000 to be hosting graduation at Stalwart. Transportation, that's an additional cost that we'd have to deem if it was optional to transport students and or parents or staff. That'd be up to discussion in the future. So that was not incorporating transportation in that original fee. Some of the costs were, the main ones were overtime pay and contracted work, security, night watch, materials, rentals, and time loss. So this is the busiest time of the year, is the beginning of the school and the end of school year. So for staff to be working on Stalwart Stadium, preparing it, they're also making sure that they address any kind of issues that the district needs as far as overtime, making sure any kind of urgent matters or work orders are tended to for the end of the school year, as well as preparing Stalwart Stadium.
And I just want to interject. So our understanding is that the board when that presentation was given to the board in 2012, this was the number and the breakdown of the cost was the board was provided with this information. It was approximately $70,000.
Okay. As Dr. Bollinger said, the Board of Trustees approved going out of town for graduation to Hofheinz at the time. That was in 2013. The contract at that time was approximately $69,000. In 2017, that's when Hofheinz actually began renovations in order to become the Fertitta Center. And at that point in time, we researched surrounding venues, and that's when we moved to Ford Park. It was extremely the cost was incredibly less than what the Hofheinz was at the time, and we were actually shocked. So we were happy to find that place. Matt, yeah. So this is just giving you the breakdown over the last 5 years. We were at Ford Park in 2017, 2018, and 2019. We could not hold ceremonies in Ford Park, and I believe it was because of either, damage to Ford Park due to Hurricane Harvey or Imelda, one of those, I can't remember which. And then we had COVID, which we had the virtual ceremony, and we were back to Ford Park, and then this year the date was not available, so we were back at the Fertitta Center. So that's how you can go ahead and go forward. As Dr. Bollinger said, the contract costs for graduation venues have ranged from $18,000, of course that's Ford Park, our beginning amount, all the way up to $115,000, which was this year at the Fertitta Center. The breakdown over the last 5 years, Ford Park, and this is just the facility, okay, and also like ambulance cost and different things that go along with it. It doesn't include miscellaneous items such as food, because we feed the graduates that come to the last ceremony due to the timeline, as well as the staff, and also the graduation workers and you know, as you're there all day long. So In 2017, it was 18,000. Ford Park was 21,484. For Fertitta Center, when we were back at the Fertitta Center in 2019, you're looking at a cost that jumped to $91,000, basically, approximately. Then we were back to Ford Park under new management. It was $12,400, and which did not include, obviously, the transportation, which we've talked about. None of the transportation was integrated into this.
Does that include security?
Yes, it included everything. Yes. Okay. Well, it did not include the cost of, our overtime, as what Abel said.
So we're still paying for that, whether we do it here or not.
Depends upon whether though whether it's Friday as a work day or whether it's Saturday. Right. So there's a variable that's included there. And then the Ford Park was, for some reason, food and miscellaneous was incorporated in 2021. Total cost being $36,898. And then this year with Fertitta Center.
Yeah, so in conclusion, to answer your question, the advantages of having it here at Stalwart are, of course, proximity. It's a lot closer. We're not driving, in traffic, hour away, and also cost. It's cheaper in the long run when you consider all the equations. So that would be the pros. The cons, of course, are what we listed. The heat was listed as one of the primary reasons why they moved it. Weather and rain, and then also the facilities.
So we used to have them at nighttime when I graduated, and so they do it at Barbers Hill that way. It's not hot at nighttime. I don't understand that argument there. But I do want to question something that he said, if I can. The sound system, he said. Now, the sound system at Fertitta wasn't that great either. There were some people, depending on how they were talking, you couldn't understand them or hear them. But, our sound system, when we have games, you can hear it perfectly. You hear it all through the city of Baytown. In fact, people will come because they hear it. I don't see how it's not good enough for us to have graduation.
I meant that the hookups on the field, when the microphones, all the system wiring, we don't have the length of the system. The speakers are great,
right?
But getting everything hooked up electronically from the press box is a little bit different because everything is set up. But we don't have the wiring from the field going to the proper thing. So that would be the additional cost to purchase some equipment that we currently do not have.
Which is understandable.
Right.
You're setting up for graduation. Yeah. See, I'm for bringing it back, as you can tell. I just think it's better here. Our tradition of doing it here has always been here. Now, I'm a latecomer to this. 10 years later, y'all said 2012 to 2022, right? So how many millions do you think we've spent going out to other areas? And did y'all give me a total number of how much we've spent over the 10 years? Total? Close? Anything?
Yeah, we can get that for you.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say I cannot tonight. But
right.
Because transportation over time, all of that would have to be calculated in.
Right. It's a lot. It's a lot. I know. It's my whole point of bringing it up. But here's the other thing. In my opinion, over the 10 years, had we been investing here at Stalwart Stadium, all that money that we're spending out there, how upgraded would our stadium be right now? Maybe these ramps would turn into elevators with all the money we spent for these older people that are out there. And as far as tickets go, we do that anyway. If it rains here, we go to tickets, 10 tickets. Some of the people can't go to these faraway events, So there's all the issues are similar, except for we're spending more money by going out, in my opinion. So,
if I may also say something, if that's okay, Dr. O'Brien.
Sure.
No matter where it is,
right,
the people that operate, behind the scenes, it won't matter where it is, because everyone does that to be of service and to make sure that the families are as happy as what they can be, and the graduates are happy that day. It's a great day.
I agree with that.
I was going to say something, but being 56 years old, it just flew out of my mind. It was really important, though, I promise.
Watch your language there.
It's okay. It's okay.
It had something to do with
a senior moment.
It was.
Interject for just a second.
Right.
I know what it was. Okay.
You go first.
It had to do with tickets. I do want to explain something.
Okay.
You know, the first, which was 2 years ago, we had to ticket and give kids a certain number of tickets. And that had to do with the fact that at Ford Park, that was the year after COVID, and we felt, scoot the kids apart where they weren't sitting right on top of each other. So when we did that, we had to take 500 seats off of the floor. It was 500 to 700 seats, I can't remember the exact number, that families and guests were able to occupy prior to that. That's why we didn't have to ticket prior to that.
Right.
So at Ford Park, that 1 year, because of COVID and trying to do what we felt was in the best interest of the students, we ticketed. Now, at the Fertitta Center this year, it didn't have to, at the Fertitta Center this year, it had to do with capacity. We did need a ticket at that point in time. But when you have it at Ford Park and you can actually utilize the floor, we don't have a need to ticket. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Do you remember the capacity of Ford Park?
About 7,500 to 8,300. I don't remember off the top of my head.
You also have a lot of empty seats because people can't travel that far over there.
No, so, that's correct.
I mean, it's a a pro or a con sometimes, I guess.
So how many of you have gone to graduation from 1988 to present? I can guarantee you probably have. You're about my age. I can guarantee you it is hot at night in Stalwart Stadium because I've been to however many, 2012 is what you said was the last one there. So however many that was, it's hot at night. So that is a valid argument. Having been to 40 graduations for Goose Creek now over the last 27 years, tonight is the very first time somebody's come to speak at a meeting about where graduation is. So
I'm glad you brought that up because let's talk about the Baytown Sun survey that said 90% of the people did complain about it and still complaining about it to this day. So, I don't know what.
Do you subscribe to the Baytown Sun?
Well, yeah, everybody reads the Baytown Sun. That's the only paper we got, but that's besides the point.
No, everybody doesn't subscribe to the Baytown Sun.
Okay, that's fine then. But there are complaints about.
Do you happen to know how many people answered that survey? 90% of how many people?
I don't know that.
That's an important question.
9% of 10?
Is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, let's
what I would
forward.
like to do, let's do a new survey and go to Baytown and ask them and find out throughout Baytown what we want to do. And I can guarantee you right now, no matter what you say about it being hot at night, because it's not. You can go outside right now and see if it's hot. It's not hot.
Okay. And a rhetorical question for everybody on the board.
Let's do a survey and form a committee just like we did for other committees or other ideas and issues and find out where we're going to go with this. Let's survey the students. Let's see if they want to go over there for graduation. Let's survey the people here in Baytown. And if we do that, then we'll know for sure. But I can guarantee you, unofficially, because he wants numbers, but I can guarantee you that Baytown wants it back in Baytown, or else this wouldn't have even been brought up.
Mr. Renteria, you were the one that said numbers to begin with. I was just asking you to quantify those numbers.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that.
I think everybody's made their point.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I know right now it's not hot outside, but you also have to consider the staging area for the students. The students arrive to graduation about 2 hours early, so that if you start graduation about 8 o'clock, which is about when it gets dark, which at 8 o'clock it's not bad outside. Right. But the students are arriving at about 6 o'clock.
Okay. And imagine 2 o'clock when we were in Fertitta when it was burning hot. And they were staging.
Would you let her finish? Because she didn't interrupt you.
I got you, but I'm just bringing up a point that she got.
Wait till
because
she
I don't want to
finishes.
forget like she did about. I'm older than she is. I'm 58.
There's a notepad right there.
Wait till she finishes talking, please.
Well, I'm going to bring up the point. You can slam that gavel all you want to.
Okay. So at 6 p.m. when the students are arriving in their full cap and gown, it's really hot for students. It's hot for the staff that has to sit out in the stands with them. So when you can stage inside, like some other districts around here, it makes it a lot easier to do it inside. But just something to consider. I know at Fertitta Center, I know at Ford Park, there's a staging area inside.
No, it was outside.
So the graduates sat outside?
We were outside from the outside to the inside.
The staging,
right.
Yeah, the staging area is inside. So they're sitting in there for 2 hours but they're sitting in the sun in the stands for 2 hours.
I understand.
That's rough. That's rough.
I got you. But I'm just saying, I know we can argue all day, we can slam gavels, but I know I'm arguing a point about Baytown and bringing this back. That's one of the reasons why I ran, and one of the promises that I made that we would bring it back to Baytown because they want it here in Baytown.
Okay, thank you.
A lot of memories.
Anything else? Any other questions? All right, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you so much.
Team.
I sound like Samson.
Action item number 10, action items. Dr. O'Brien.
10A is consider approval of the 2022-2023 compensation package. I believe at this time the board would seek a motion for scenario 1 or 2.
I'd like to make a motion for scenario 1.
Second. I have a motion from Mr. Cotter and a second from myself to do compensation package number 1. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. I see 6-4 and none against, so the motion carries.
The next 2 items are related to the earlier presentation on our fixed rate. 10B is consider and approve an order approving a fixed rate period for a portion of the Goose Creek Consolidated Independent School District Variable Rate Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds, Series 2014B, and approving other provisions related thereto. Administration would recommend approval of 10B.
I so move the
Second.
approval for 10B.
I have a motion from Mrs. Barat Timms and a second from Mr. Renteria to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 6-4 and 0 against, the motion passes.
And 10C is consider and approve an order approving a fixed rate period for a portion of the Goose Creek CISD Variable Rate Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds, Series 2019B, and approving other provisions related thereto. Administration would recommend approval.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Auto approval.
I have a motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mr. Renteria to approve the 2019B bonds. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 6-4 and 0 against, motion passes.
Action item 10D, consideration of conflict of interest provisions of matters related to Chapter 313 Economic Development Agreements with Borison Madison Pipe US Inc. Administrator recommends approval.
Actually, we need to take item 10D and E at your desk tonight. Were 2 forms that one's concerning Borison and one's concerning
Air Liquide.
Air Liquide, and we need to apparently Mr.
Sign those now and pass them down.
Yeah.
I have one.
Pass them to Mr. Sampson.
And check whether you do or do not have a substantial interest.
And check. Do you have an interest or do you not? Substantial interest.
I'll ask whether everybody's turned in.
Good. All right. Thank you. All right. And then also at your desk was a 2-page sheet concerning Chapter 313 posting items that we need to use for proper motions, specific language.
For the record, can I get affirmation from all the trustees that they have submitted the 2 conflict of interest forms to the secretary?
Yeah.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Start by saying no conflict of interest in your name.
I have no conflict of interest. Howard Sampson, Secretary.
I have no conflict of interest. Helen Barat Timms.
I have no conflict of interest. Richard Clem.
No conflict of interest. Tiffany Guy.
No conflict of interest. Mercedes Renteria.
No conflict of interest. Shay Cotter.
Thank you very much.
Did you have to do more?
Yep.
We need to do, I skipped you, sorry.
Kevin.
Does he need to declare as well?
Yeah, might as well.
It won't
No
hurt.
conflict of interest, Randall O'Brien.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I forgot about that. Okay, so that should take us to 10F.
10F, consider and adopt findings under the Texas Economic Development Act on the application of Borson Madison Pipe US Inc. Comptroller application number 1684 for an appraised value limitation on qualified property for school district maintenance and operation and taxes.
Yeah, we need the whole language.
Okay. I move to adopt findings under the Texas Economic Development Act as proposed by the district's consultants and council on the application of Borson Madison Pipe US Inc. Comptroller application number 1684 for an appraised value limitation on qualified property for school district maintenance and operations taxes.
Good job.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, a very nice motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mrs. Barat Tim to adopt the findings. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Seeing 6-4 and 0 against, the motion passes.
After adopting the findings, administration brings before you 10G, consideration and approve the agreement with Borson Madison Pipe US Comptroller application 1684 for an appraised value limitation on qualified property for school district maintenance and operation taxes, and to authorize the superintendent to accept and amend any amended application for the project and transmit it to the Texas Comptroller's office for review.
If I can just recall, if you will, what I said in the public hearing.
Yes.
The Borson wants to move the date by a year. That's what the application amendment is that you're authorizing the superintendent to do. Because of the timeline and the expiration of the statute, they decided that it made more sense to finish this one and then do the amendment. So that's why the two-step.
Right. And for clarification, since his recommendation was almost the wording of this motion, do we have to repeat all of that?
No.
Or can somebody
move to
can I
accept
get
the
a so
superintendent's
moved?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mrs. Barat Timms and a second from Mr. Renteria to approve application number 1684. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Seeing 6-4 and 0 against, the motion passes.
10H, discussion and possible action to accept Air Liquide application for an appraised value limitation on qualified property and authorize the superintendent to enter into any agreement to extend the deadline for board action beyond 150 days, subject to board ratification.
I'll move to approve.
Have a motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mr. Cotter to accept the Air Liquide application. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Seeing 6-4 and 0 against, the motion passes.
I, discussion and possible action to retain consultants to assist the district in processing the Air Liquide application for appraised value limitation on qualified property.
And I would seek, let's do it this way. I would seek a motion to retain Moak, Casey and Associates and O'Hanlon, Demarath and Castillo to assist the district in processing the Air Liquide application for appraised value limitation on qualified property.
10H.
I think he's combining them, right?
You combining both of them?
We're
10I.
10I and 10H.
we're on. We've already done H. We're on I now.
I.
I voted for H again.
We need to retain counsel and okay. I'm sorry, I missed the motion.
Oh, I thought you
Okay.
No, I just I'm
how you
seeking that
wanted to say
motion.
it.
So moved.
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion. I think I have a motion from Mr. Renteria and a second from Mrs. Guy to retain said consultants for the Air Liquide application. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, please raise your hand. And I see 6-4 and 0 against, so that motion passes.
Mr. President, just to complete the discussion, we're not charging for the for the application, the amendment. So that's
Okay.
why there's not another contract. We'll
Okay,
deal
awesome.
with that under the last contract.
Thank you for clarifying that. All right. I think you're finished for now.
Finally, yes.
Or I think we're through with finances for tonight.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. All right. And then let me find my script. This is the lovely meeting where we have to declare that we are well-trained board members. And just for those of you who don't know, school boards are the only elected officials in the state of Texas that are required to have training.
A lot.
Just saying. So, Ms. Garcia, I just need to read the name and the total hours into the record. All right. These are our CPE hours. Richard Clem, 35. Shay Cotter, 10. Howard Sampson, 14. Tiffany Guy, 9.5. Jessica Woods, 26. Helen Barat Timms, 30. And Mercedes Renteria, 16. That's the end of 10J.
Then I'll go to 10K, consideration of consent agenda.
That's easy for you to say.
K1, proposed 22-23 student code of conduct. 2, amendments to the current local innovation plan. 3, resolution to convene the school health advisory committee, SHAC. Number 4, engagement letter from the independent audit firm of Mays & Associates, PLLC, formerly Stark, Garcia & Stanley, LLC, for the district's annual financial audit for the fiscal year 21-22. Number 5, board policy CDA local, other revenues and investments. Number 6, resolution for the school district's approved sources of instruction relating to investment responsibilities. Number 7, qualified broker-dealers and financial institutions for 22-23. Number 8, memorandum of understanding, an MOU with Harris County Department of Education for High Point School East. Number 9, memorandum of understanding, MOU for Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program, JJAEP, for the 22-23 school year. Number 10, memorandum of understanding, MOU between Harris County Department of Education for Fortis Academy, Recovery High School. Number 11, award of request for proposal, RFP, for a food service management company and delegate authority to the superintendent to finalize the contract with Aramark to provide food service management services to the district. And number 12, tax refunds. Administration brings before the board this evening consideration of consent agenda, recommending approval.
Does anybody have any questions or wishes to pull an item for separate consideration? Thank you very much, Mr. O'Hanlon. All right, then I would seek a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Cotter and a second. I'm sorry. That's right. I have a motion from Mr. Cotter and a second from Mr. Renteria to approve consent agenda items 1 through 12 as presented. Any discussion? Okay. And all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed or abstain? I have 5 for and 1 abstention, so the motion passes. And I want to thank our DOI people because y'all did a great job making that real clear. And I'm glad our Aramark people are staying to take care of us and et cetera. So thank you very much. Our next board meeting is, what, June 20th?
Rick, where are the snacks? We were looking for snacks. No, I'm sorry. Aramark.
They fed us fajitas. What more do you want? Okay. So future board agenda items, trainings, meetings. I know lots of folks are going to SLI next week. Our next board meeting, our regular board meeting is June the 20th. However, we need to consider scheduling a special meeting at 11:30 on June 13th for the sole purpose of approving personnel.
11:30 or 11?
I don't remember.
We said 11.
We said 11, okay. 11 o'clock. So there will be a special meeting right here on Monday, June 13th at 11 a.m., and we will consider personnel. And then, like I said, the next regular meeting is the following Monday on the 20th. We need to reschedule July the 4th because everybody needs to go watch fireworks. And traditionally, we've just bumped it over to the 5th on that particular meeting.
It did. It was already headed there.
Yeah.
Somewhere we did it.
Is that okay with everyone? And that'll be a regular 6 p.m. meeting. Then September 5th, I assume, is Labor Day. And
one's very special birthday.
Cool. A Labor Day baby. Yes. Awesome. Ms. Garcia, is that another one we just usually bump over one day to the Tuesday, and that works out okay for admin? So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll move the September 5th meeting to the 6th, also at 6. And I don't know what October 17th is. Oh, is that the fall break? So let's not move it over to Tuesday. Do we want to move it a week later or a week? Do we need it since there's only 3 weeks in October? Do we just want to cancel that one?
I believe so.
All right, let's consider October 17th canceled. And that should do it. Anybody have any questions or issues with SLI or things that you need to? Everybody's good? Okay. All right. Any future board agenda items that we've not already mentioned? Okay. Then, with that said, I have to find my script. The board will now recess into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code sections 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, and or 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed meeting, and the time now is 8:31. No decisions were made while the board was in closed session. We will be on agenda item 10O. Dr. O'Brien?
Yes. Thank you. Administration brings before the board this evening a recommendation to approve the elections and accept the resignations and retirements as presented.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mr. Renteria to approve elections, resignations, and retirements. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. See 6-4 and 0 against. The motion passes.
Administration brings before the board the following administrative recommendations for hire. Mary Broussard, LSSP intern.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Guy and a second from Mr. Cotter to approve LSSP. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Seeing 6-4 and 0 against, the motion passes.
Administration brings before the board this evening for consideration educational diagnosticians Pamela Efleshi and Heather Hanvey.
Okay. Have a motion from Mrs. Barat-Timms and a second from Mrs. Guy to approve educational diagnosticians. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. I'm going to interrupt you. I would seek a motion to eliminate discussion for the items C through K.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Cotter and a second from Mr. Renteria to suspend discussion on the items C through K. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 6-0. Now, item C.
Administration recommends for Behavior Management Specialist Ralph Jason Moore.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Renteria and a second from Mr. Sampson to approve the Behavior Management Specialist. All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 6-4 and 0 against, the motion passes.
Administration brings to the board this evening Mathematics Instructional Specialist Robin Sanders.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Oh, boy. I'll just call it. I have a motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mrs. Barat-Timms to approve the Math Instructional Specialist. All in favor, please raise your hand. All, seeing 6-4 and 0 against, motion passes.
Next is Special Education Instructional Specialist Carol Douglas.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Renteria and a second from Mr. Sampson to approve item F. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6-4, 0 against, motion passes.
Administration recommends Dual Language and Migrant Program Coordinator Zamira Torres.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Guy and a second from Mr. Renteria to approve the Dual Language and Migrant Program Coordinator. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6-4, 0 against, motion passes.
Elementary Counselor at Lamar Elementary Tamika Higgins.
Second.
Motion from Mrs. Barat-Tim and a second from Mr. Renteria to approve elementary counselor. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6-0, motion passes.
Administration brings before you secondary counselors Horace Mann, Shanice Steenholt, and Highlands Jr. Caleb Bolds.
Have a motion from Mrs. Barat-Timms and a second from Mrs. Guy to approve the secondary counselors. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6-0, motion passes.
And a college and career readiness counselor at Impact Early College High School, Crystal Grable.
So move.
A motion from Mr. Renteria and a second from Mrs. Barat-Tim to approve what you said.
Crystal Gable.
Crystal Gable, thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6-0, motion passes.
Elementary students.
Dr. O'Brien, I'm sorry, point of order. I had another special education instructional specialist. I don't know if you had it or not. Her name was Jennifer Martin.
I remember that name. Yeah, 1003E. I don't know if that helps or not.
Okay. Item E.
Oh, what's the name? And the position?
Special education instructional specialist.
Nope.
I do not have it.
I made that up. That's not in our packet. Okay. Can we put that on Monday's agenda, please? All right. All right.
Got just a couple more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's
No, good catch, because they're going to approve it Monday.
Have elementary support, student support administrator at Carver and Lamar Elementary, Demetrice Haynes.
That's a split position? Okay.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion from Ms. Guy and a second from Ms. Barat-Timms for the elementary SSA. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6-0, motion passes.
And finally, for the board to consider and take action to extend an administrator contract as presented.
A motion from Mrs. Barat-Timms and a second from Mrs. Guy to extend the administrator contract as presented. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6-0, motion passes. And for the record, we pulled J for consideration at a future board meeting. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion from Mr. Renteria and a second from Mr. Cotter. All in favor, say goodbye. Motion passes at 9:18 p.m.
Yay.
Not so bad.
Not for 2.5 pages.
Considering this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2.5 page agenda.